Hey everyone, it's Kay. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have a super exciting video, which is my 2020 book haul part 2. Let's jump right into it. Also, quick shout out to one of my best friends. When I went to visit her in Jacksonville this year, she took me to the most amazing bookstore ever. It was called Chiama's Book Mine, and it was like book heaven. I'll attach a picture here. It was so cool, so much fun. I want to go back. But she sent me this shirt for Christmas, and it's, thank you. I'm so happy. And I figured what better time to wear it than this book haul where I actually got books from this book mine. So yeah, just a fun tidbit about why I'm wearing this shirt. I'm super excited. So in this haul, I have 19 amazing books. 2 I got from subscription boxes, and a few I got as gifts, and the rest I splurged and bought myself. And I'm excited to share, so in no particular order, I'm just going to jump in and give you some rough summaries. A lot of these books are BookTube hyped, so I'm sure you've heard of them, and the ones that aren't, I'll try to give a good explanation. But yeah, I'm super excited, and let's begin. So this first book came out in 2020, and it's a debut book by Roseanne A. Brown, and that is Song of Wraith and Ruin. And for the longest time, I called this Wrath and Ruin, and thankfully I watched enough videos to learn otherwise. This is a fantasy book that I have heard raving reviews about because of its immersive world, and it is based on African mythology, and this is about 2 characters and enemies to lovers story. So this is about our male lead, who is Malik, I believe that's how you say his name, and his sister has been taken, and now he is going to enter a competition to try and get her back. And in this, he has to kill the crown princess in order to get his sister back. Now, flip POVs to said crown princess, who has just lost her mother and is determined to get her back through magic. And in order to do that, she needs the beating heart of a king. And so the perfect way to do that is to offer her hand in marriage and then kill her husband. Sounds fair. And these 2 come together, and I've heard this is an amazing story full of an amazing immersive world, and I'm so excited to get to it. I feel like I'm getting all the big hyped BookTube books out of the way first, so that's good. The next one is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, and I'm sure you have heard of this book, but I'm going to pitch it anyway. This is about a girl who, in a desperate attempt to live life on her own terms, makes a deal with the devil in order to live forever. However, on the condition that no one will remember her, and everyone who has ever met her will forget her, so she is doomed to live alone for eternity, pretty much. However, 300 years later, in a forgotten bookstore in New York, she runs into someone who remembers her name, and from there, her journey, I assume, begins. And I am reading this currently, and so far I am really enjoying it, and I cannot wait to continue it. Next up is something I am super excited about. It is Carrie Maniscalco's newest release, and that is Kingdom of the Wicked, and sadly I did not get to this in spooky season. However, I'm probably going to postpone it until next spooky season, but we'll see. Don't hold me to that. So in this, we have twin witches living in Italy, and Amelia's twin sister is brutally murdered, and she is now determined to figure out what happened, and along the way she crossed paths with Wraith, a prince of hell, and together they reluctantly are working together to try to solve these mysteries. And I have heard it's an amazing dark romance, and I'm super excited. I love Carrie Maniscalco's romances, so let's go. I'm ready. Next up on BookTube's hype train is Stardaughter, and this cover is gorgeous, and the concept is super unique. And this is about a girl who is the daughter of a star, and her mortal father is terminally ill, so she is now going to the heavens who have been calling her, and she is now going to enter this competition where the next celestial power is to be chosen. And I have heard amazing things about this book, so I'm super excited to get to it. Next is one of my new favorite books, and that is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. And in case you haven't heard yet, this is a Romeo and Juliet retelling set in 1920s Shanghai between heirs of rival gangs running the city. And there is a monster thrown into it and a disease, and it is a wild ride. I highly recommend. I had so much fun with it. Now next up is a book I got in the Beacon Book Box in May. Beacon Book Box Maze Box. Why was that so hard to say? And that is House of Dragons. And I have heard really good things about this book and some not so good things, but I'm going into it with an open mind. This is a fantasy first in a series where 5 outcasts are now competing for a throne of a dead emperor, and I'm assuming dragons are going to come into play. So it's kind of a twist on the typical fantasy squad, and I'm excited to go into it. So yeah, this next book, I saw it and I couldn't resist. It's a tragic historical romance set in World War II, but on the Japanese side of things, and that is The Blossom and the Firefly. This book sounds absolutely devastating and beautiful, and I cannot wait to read it. This is about a kamikaze pilot who is ready to fulfill his duty, but however, right before he's about to go, he meets this girl who was buried pretty much alive in a wall, and she has not been the same since. And she is pretty suicidal and depressed. However, when they meet each other, the war is trying to tear them apart, and it just says, is it possible to live a lifetime in 8 days? And you guys, this is going to break my heart in the best way possible. I cannot wait to get to it. Next up is a sequel to a duology I started last year, and that is The Life Below, the sequel to The Final Six. And The Final Six is about where humans and pollution have driven carbon emissions and global warming to an all-time high, and ocean levels are destroying countries, so now the fate of the world rests in finding 6 prodigy teenagers who will start humanity over on Jupiter's moon Europa, and it follows the competition going on and 2 teenagers who are trying to figure out what really happened on the last mission that went terribly wrong. It left off on a cliffhanger, so I'm so ready to dive into this book. Another duology conclusion I got was Majesty, the sequel to American Royals by Catherine McGee. And American Royals is about what if George Washington had taken a crown instead of a presidency, and now 200 years later, Beatrice Washington is about to become the first Queen of America, and it follows her and her siblings' messy relationships of friendships and relationships and a plot going on, and it's like a soap opera but better. Like, you guys read it's so fun. And now this next book is by Monica Hesse, and that is They Went Left, and this is going to break my heart, and I think it's going to be a very hard but powerful read. And this is about 2 siblings are the only ones that went right in the concentration camp. The rest of their family was gassed and killed, and now the concentration camp has been liberated, and this girl is now out to find her brother and reconnect with him. And I think this is going to be unlike anything I have ever read, and powerful and heartbreaking and emotional, and I really am excited to dive into it. And yet another duology conclusion, I got The Damned, which is the sequel to The Beautiful, and The Beautiful is about a girl who is fleeing, Celine, who has fled Europe and is going to New Orleans in the 1800s, and when she gets there, she stumbles into a whole underground of vampires, but they never actually say they're vampires, but you get it. And it was a very vibey, very atmospheric, very just good aesthetic. And yeah, I read that also in 2020. So I finished this and it was a fun time. It was cool to have vampires in 1800s New Orleans. Now this next book I won in a Bookstagram giveaway, so that was super exciting. I've never won a giveaway before, so I was so happy, and that is Blood and Honey, the sequel to Serpent and Dove, and I honestly really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. I had such a fun time reading it. I thought it was better than Serpent and Dove personally. So yeah, I recommend it. I know a lot of people didn't get into it, but I really enjoyed it. So Serpent and Dove is about a witch and a witch hunter in a forced marriage, and that's really all you need to know going into it. There's magic and fighting and forbidden romance, but not forbidden romance, so it's a fun time. I recommend it. It's cool. And now these next 2 books are why I wore the Chamberlain shirt. I got both these books on my trip to Jacksonville from the Book Mine, and the first one is Shadow of the Fox. Now, I have heard amazing things about this book, and I pretty much heard it's anime in the form of a book, and I'm personally not into anime, but I've heard such good things I can't resist picking this up. So yes, this is based heavily on Japanese mythology. From what I can gather, there's kitsunes and samurais, and I think there's road trips in it. Well, walking trips, not road trips. And it just sounds like so much fun, and I've heard great things, so I really want to get into it. And the second one I picked up at Chamberlain's was The Immortalist, and this was 110% a cover buy. I saw it on the way out, and me and my friend both got a copy, because look how pretty this is. And I've not really heard much about it, but it is a historical fiction novel following the lives of 4 children as they grow up and make their way in the world. And I really don't know much more than that, but I'm going to read an excerpt from the back, and that is both a dazzling family love story and a sweeping novel of remarkable ambition and depth. The Immortalist probes the line between destiny and choice, reality and illusion, this world and the next, and a deeply moving testament to the power of story, the nature of belief, and the unrelenting pull of familial bond. And that honestly is all I needed to know to pick this up and actually buy it, other than the beautiful cover. So I'm super excited to get to this as soon as I can. And now for another retelling to add to my collection, that is Bookish and the Beast, a companion novel to Geekerella that I read last year. And honestly, Bookish and the Beast, what better title for me to pick up? I love Beauty and the Beast retellings, and I'm always jumping at the chance to find a contemporary one, so I'm super excited. In this book, Rosie is bookish, and she is trying to do anything, really. She's living in a small town, so not much is happening, but she loves books, and she is grieving her mother, who has left her the library. However, it had to be sold to pay hospital bills. And Q Vance, who is a celebrity who has gotten into some scandals with the tabloids, so he is hiding out in this small town. And their paths collide when a rare book is destroyed, so now they are both having to work to pay it off. And they both don't like each other, however, it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. You can guess where it goes from there. So I'm super excited to pick this up, and yeah! So this next one I picked up was pretty big on BookTube, for I think it was big in the beginning of 2020 or the end of 2019, but either way, I picked it up and it sounds awesome, and that is The Honeymoons by Christina Lauren. And this is about Olive, who is kind of the unlucky twin, and her sister got their entire wedding financed. However, she is being forced to spend time with her nemesis, which is the best man, Ethan. And then the entire wedding party gets food poisoning except the two of them, and now suddenly there's a honeymoon for grabs, and she's not going to let him spend it alone. So they've called a truce, and they are going off on this honeymoon together, and from there, their hatred probably turns to love, and it sounds adorable. I'm hoping to read this end of spring, summertime. I'm excited. It sounds fun. I'm ready. This next book, I 100% cover bought it. However, it's about a bookstore, so how could I go wrong? So that is A Bookshop of Yesterdays, and this has deckled edges. It's a paperback, but it has I love it. I bought it for the cover, and once I heard it was about a bookshop, how could I say no? So this is about, who's it about? So Miranda has grown up, and when she was younger, her uncle had a bookstore and scavenger hunts, and she loved both. However, as she grew up, the uncle had a falling out with her mother, and she's not heard from him again until he dies and leaves his bookstore to her. This bookstore is kind of on the teetering of bankruptcy, and her uncle has left her one final scavenger hunt to kind of piece together what happened between him and her mother all those years ago. And this is about family and reading and a love of bookshops, and I'm super excited to pick it up. Now, this next book was quite big in the beginning of 2020, and then it kind of got swept under the rug with the pandemic and everything, and I got this from Once Upon a Book Box, so I'm really excited, and that is By the Book, and this is about a teenager who gives romantic advice to her friends based on classic novels, and honestly, that's the most bookworm thing I have ever heard. That's pretty much me. That's how I would do everything. So, yes, however, she finds herself falling for the bad boy, someone she would have warned her friends to stay away from. And this is all about her discovering that sometimes you have to write your own happy ending, and this sounds light and fluffy and adorable and a good pick-me-up contemporary, and I'm super excited to get to it. And now, this last book of the haul is pretty fitting to end on because I have fallen in love with this book, and I have talked about it nonstop in my last 4-ish videos and even before that, and that is Seasons of the Storm by El Casamano. This is the beginning of a fantasy duology revolving around personified seasons, and this has found family, fantasy road trips, and the coolest elemental magic system. It's so good, I can't recommend it enough. And this, we have Jack, who is a winter, and he has fallen in love with the spring, Fleur. However, there is a glaring problem in which Fleur must kill him in order for the seasons to continue their cycle, and now Fleur is on the edge of being purged, in which that means she will be wiped from existence and permanently die, and all her magic will go back into the cycle. So Jack, with the help of Julio and Amber, who are summer and fall, are now going to break out and try to save Fleur and try to break this cycle of death they are all on, and there is so much fun, and there's high stakes, and it's just, go read it, you guys. And those are the 19 books I bought in the back half of 2020. I have some amazing reads here. Some I've already read, some I can't wait to get into, and I'm super excited. Let me know if you loved any of these books so I can prioritize the order of getting to them. I would love to know, and if you hauled any cool favorites, let me know that as well. If you like this video, please consider subscribing, and if you want to see more of me, my socials are linked below. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye!